In the 4th year of my secret love for Rocky, we finally had a relationship. He was wealthy, attractive, and the perfect boyfriend. Except that he didn't want to marry. Everyone knew he was waiting for his first love to come back. So, when she did return, I quietly left. The next time we met was at a drinking party. I was being harassed by some business partners, drunk to the point of being completely wasted, but I still refused to call Rocky. In the midst of the commotion, Rocky slowly made his way through the crowd. In the infinite silence, his voice was soft and resigned. "You won't even make a call, is it really that humiliating?" As they poured me drink after drink, my face flushed slightly, and my ears grew warm. The business partners kept urging me, "If you just call Rocky, you won't have to drink anymore." I looked at the dozen glasses on the table, silently picking up one after another. Someone joked, "No wonder she's Rocky's top secretary. Her drinking skills are impressive." But I hadn't touched alcohol in 2 years. Rocky didn't allow it. 2 years ago, in order to help him secure the toughest piece of land, I drank with the client until I had stomach bleeding without telling him. Rocky, always so gentle and elegant, exploded in anger. After that, the company implemented a policy banning female colleagues from drinking at business events. He was smart, sharp, and proud, attracting secret admirers, myself included. But everyone knew Rocky had a first love living abroad. Even after they broke up years ago, he was still waiting for her to return. I thought my unrequited love would eventually end without a trace. But I never imagined we would actually have a relationship. During that hospital stay, Rocky visited me every day. Each time, he stayed for 2 hours. He didn't talk much, just sat beside me with his laptop, working. I tried to convince him to go back to the office, but he said, "My secretary is here, going back to the office would be inefficient." I pulled a long face, "Boss, I'm a patient." He was momentarily taken aback, then chuckled. "Who are you calling a tyrant overworking a patient?" Having been by Rocky's side, I had seen many elite talents, but no one had his carefree attitude, which made me fall for him even deeper. He didn't know that I had been in love with him for 4 years. It started in my sophomore year when he came back to the university as a distinguished alumnus to give a speech. On the podium, he was full of confidence, every gesture exuding charm. After the speech, I gathered the courage to approach him and hand him my resume. He didn't reject me due to my lack of experience. Instead, he encouraged me to give it a try. With just those 2 sentences, I threw myself wholeheartedly into his world. At first, I was just an assistant in the secretary department, but after passing several rounds of screening, I became his trusted aide. But he didn't remember me. Half of the drinks on the table were gone, but I was nearing my limit. The business partner persisted. "Haley, everyone says you're Rocky's favorite secretary. If you call him, he'll come right over. Why be stubborn?" I responded with a question. "So if I finish these, you'll sign the contract?" "Of course. My word is my bond." "All right." I suppressed the nausea rising in my stomach and kept drinking. The business partner had one thing wrong. I was only his favorite once. After that hospitalization, Rocky had a lot of work piled up. So after I was discharged, he had me work overtime with him for a week. A week later, he got sick. I knocked on his door with a stack of documents, only to find out he had a high fever and no medicine at home. I put down the documents and turned to leave, but he grabbed me, looking pitiful. "I haven't eaten." So I bought medicine and food for him. When Rocky was sick, he lost the sharpness he usually had at work, becoming more approachable. Even though I tried my best to control myself, I couldn't stop my heart from racing. His illness hit hard, and he had to work from home. Since I lived in the suburbs, commuting every day was exhausting. So when he suggested I stay at his place temporarily, I didn't refuse. I ended up staying for nearly half a month. He didn't ask me to leave, and I didn't want to. The day that shattered our peaceful arrangement, Rocky had been drinking a little too much. When we got home, I told him to sit on the couch while I made some hangover soup. "Haley." I turned around to see Rocky standing behind me, his face flushed, ears red. I kept stirring the soup. "It'll be ready soon. Go sit down." "Haley." He stepped closer, calling my name again. Sensing something was wrong, I looked back, sighing. "How much did you drink?" He shook his head. "I didn't drink." After drinking the hangover soup, I went to prepare his bath. I heard footsteps behind me, and before I could turn, his warm chest pressed against my back. Startled, I spun around, meeting Rocky's deep, dark eyes, and instinctively tried to run. But he was quick, closing the bathroom door. In the small, enclosed space, the atmosphere turned ambiguous. He took a step forward, and I stiffened, stepping back. He kept moving closer, and I retreated until my back hit the sink, no escape. He trapped me in front of the sink, his voice low. "Is it okay?" I didn't respond, nor did I refuse. A selfish part of me knew this was my best chance to get close to him. But what about after tonight? Knowing Rocky, we wouldn't even remain as colleagues. I bent my knees, sliding down slowly. Rocky seemed puzzled at first, but when he realized I was trying to escape under his arm, he grabbed me and, without a word, kissed me. I clutched his sleeve, hearing my heartbeat magnified. I struggled for a moment but soon surrendered, closing my eyes. When our clothes fell to the floor, I had already planned when to make my escape, but I didn't get the chance. As soon as I got out of bed, he pulled me back, burying his face in my neck. His tone a mix of dominance and a plea. If you sleep with me, you have to take responsibility. You're not an exception. Our relationship wasn't like other couples. At work, we only talked about work. But no matter how busy we were, he would always take one day a week to spend with me. We did everything normal couples do. He was handsome, rich, and great in bed, but he also provided emotional support. These past 2 years have been some of the happiest times of my life. I even dared to dream that we could continue like this forever. But then, on a seemingly ordinary day, I couldn't reach Rocky for the entire day. The secretaries quietly told me that his first love had returned. To this day, I still remember the look in my colleague's eyes, pity tinged with meaning. The day I decided to resign, it snowed. As someone from the South, I have a special fondness for snow. Unlike the damp cold of southern winters, here it was snowy outside, but warm as spring indoors. I stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, enviously watching others build snowmen. Ever since I became Rocky's secretary, I hadn't had the chance to build a snowman. Snow meant the end of the year was approaching, and the workload would be too overwhelming. Just as I regretted missing this snowfall, Rocky suddenly appeared behind me. Want to build a snowman? I glanced at the mountain of documents behind him and shook my head against my will, but he took my hand and led me outside. We have an hour of break time, should be enough to build a snowman. He took lots of photos of me. I wanted a photo together, but he refused, saying he didn't like being photographed. That evening, I accidentally found a thick album in his drawer. Every single photo in it was a couple's photo featuring Rocky and Serena. In those pictures, Rocky looked younger. He posed in all sorts of cute ways with Serena, showing no trace of impatience. So, my boyfriend didn't dislike taking photos, he just didn't like taking them with me. I thought if I were less professional or if he spoiled me just a bit more, I might have demanded an explanation while holding that album, but I didn't. I just calmly put the album back where it was, pretending I had never seen it. Later that evening, when I was sorting through photos to post on my social media, I saw a post from one of Rocky's good friends. I knew only Rocky would do something as silly as building a snowman with Serena. There was a picture of Rocky and Serena embracing in front of the snowman. Only then did I realize that after parting with me that night, Rocky had gone to see Serena. They were smiling effortlessly for the camera. A handsome man and a beautiful woman, perfectly matched. For the first time in 2 years, I had the thought of leaving him. When did I make the decision to leave? It was probably the day Serena came to the office. Rocky, who usually prioritized work, canceled all his engagements just to have lunch with her. I took my tray and found a corner in the staff cafeteria. Just as I sat down, I overheard the coworkers behind me mention Serena. Serena is still so beautiful. I heard she's back to marry Rocky. What's Haley going to do? Are you stupid? Rocky was just playing around with Haley. Now that the woman he's going to marry is back, of course, Haley's going to be cast aside. Look, ever since Haley hooked up with Rocky, they've had every meal together. Today Serena shows up, and Rocky ditches Haley. Isn't that obvious enough? Shh! Keep it down. Haley's right there. Well, facts are facts. Even if I don't say it, it won't change the reality that Haley's about to be dumped. The meal was tasteless. When I returned to the office, Rocky still hadn't come back. I turned on my computer and spent half an hour drafting my resignation letter. Then I placed it on Rocky's desk. As I was about to finish the last glass of alcohol, someone shouted, "Rocky's here," pulling me abruptly from my memories. Everyone turned toward the door, but Rocky was nowhere to be seen. Bame, the client, and a rival of Rocky, smiled menacingly and threatened. "Secretary Haley, if Rocky doesn't come today, you're not leaving this room. This call, you'll make it, whether you want to or not." Suppressing the dizziness, I took out the contract. "This is truly a contract from Show Enterprises, Mr. Bame. I've already resigned from Rocky's group." Bame squinted at the contract and suddenly laughed. "So Rocky really let you go? Secretary Haley, I need someone capable like you. Come work for me. What Rocky can give you, I can too. But I didn't want to. What Rocky gave me, no one else could." Seeing my silence, Bame became aggressive. Do you really think you're such a big deal? If it weren't to spite Rocky, I wouldn't bother with a secretary like you. Do you think spending 2 years with Rocky means you'll soar high? I'm telling you, you'll never be welcomed into Rocky's home. Now that the woman called Serena is back, there's no way Rocky will ever mess with you again. Haley, you're smart. You know what to do, don't you? I lowered my eyes in silence. After all this time with Rocky, how could I not understand the situation? But people always need a bit of unrealistic hope to keep going. I smiled slightly. Mr. Bame, instead of threatening me to get Rocky to show up, why not go straight to Miss Serena? As you said, she's the one who's going to be Rocky's wife. Mr. Bame was livid and grabbed my hair to force me to drink. Suddenly, someone shouted, "Rocky." In the next second, Mr. Bame was pulled away by 2 bodyguards. Rocky walked slowly through the crowd, took off his coat, and covered my disheveled self. His voice was calm, almost emotionless. "Mr. Bame, treating my girlfriend like this, are you declaring war on me?" Rocky had really come. He wanted to take me away, and no one could stop him. In the cramped back seat of the car, he gave me some hangover medicine, gently brushing the hair from my forehead. In the dim light outside, I could see his tense, chiseled profile. After 3 years of working closely with him, I knew too well this was a sign he was angry. Instinctively, I reached for the car door, but before I could touch the handle, he pulled me back. As I struggled, I met those deep, dark eyes. I don't know where I got the courage, but I glared at him fiercely. He looked slightly surprised, then smirked. I grew even angrier. "Let go." Not only did he not let go, but he pulled me onto his lap, pinning my wrists to stop me from moving. Not even willing to make a call. "Are you that upset?" His voice was soft, with a hint of helplessness, like a charming trickster. I turned my head away, refusing to look at him. "I'm not upset." As a boss, he treated his subordinates well, rewarding them fairly. As a boyfriend, he was generous, giving me whatever I wanted and never making me feel wronged. "If you're not upset, then take me off your blacklist." I froze, only then remembering how I had blocked and deleted all his contacts the day I left. At the time, I had vowed never to add him back. But if I unblocked him now, wouldn't that undo all the emotional work I had done in these past few days? The cramped car was so silent it was almost scary. I don't know how long the silence lasted, but suddenly I heard him say, "Haley, do you want to marry me?" For a moment, I thought I had heard him wrong, but the cool touch on my finger told me I hadn't. Looking down, I saw a platinum diamond ring on my middle finger. "Why?" I asked. Rocky held my hand, his rough thumb gently stroking my palm. "Serena and I aren't what people say. She's the daughter of a family friend. We dated for a while, but realized we weren't compatible, so we broke up. She's been abroad for years, and now that she's back, she's unfamiliar with the situation here, so her father asked me to help her out. Haley, Serena's father, has done a lot for me." I couldn't refuse his request. His voice was sincere and heartfelt, the kind of tone that could make anyone believe him without hesitation. Reason told me I should reject him, but every cell in my body screamed to give us one more chance. So, under his hopeful gaze, I nodded. We ultimately couldn't successfully obtain our marriage certificate. When we reached the Civil Affairs Bureau, Rocky took a call. With a hint of apology, he said to me, "Today is Serena's father's 60th birthday. If we get the certificate now and then rush over, it'll be too late." He held my hand and added, "I'm all yours, I won't run away." He promised that we would postpone getting the certificate for one night and go to the bureau first thing in the morning. Rocky always knew how to sweet-talk me, and as he talked, I started to reassure myself. "I just resigned, we haven't broken up." He proposed, and I accepted. That's completely normal. It was just a matter of being a half-day late. I could wait. Upon arriving at Serena's house, Rocky was called away. He asked me to find a place to sit and wait for him, saying, "Don't worry, I'll be back soon." After sitting for a while, a few girls arrived. They chatted loudly, indifferent to anyone around. "I heard Rocky has a girlfriend now. Do you think Serena will get engaged to him?" "Engaged? What engagement? You don't know? This party looks like a birthday celebration, but it's actually an engagement party." "No way. I just saw Rocky come in with his little secretary. They say they're getting along pretty well." I heard Rocky is only with the secretary to pressure Serena to come back. Besides, Serena broke up with him just to spite him. Suddenly, someone pointed toward the dance floor and exclaimed, "Look over there. I told you, the first dance of the day is definitely for Serena and Rocky. Let's go." Following their gaze, I saw a pair of beautiful dancers in the center of the dance floor. They moved gracefully, gazing at each other with deep affection, as if no one else could intrude upon their connection. I never knew Rocky danced so well. Each step, every smile, was perfectly in sync. I could hear the envy and admiration around me, along with speculation about their upcoming wedding. Once, I was Rocky's top secretary, aware of all his daily schedules. Now, I could only wait passively like everyone else for the truth to unfold. When the dance concluded, applause thundered. I clapped as well. Rocky finally noticed me. His expression changed slightly when he looked over. I gave him a small smile. He paused for a moment, intending to walk toward me, but Serena held onto his hand. They exchanged a few hushed words, and I saw Rocky gesture as if to say he would call me before he left with Serena. I had already removed his contact information from my blacklist. Soon, I received his message. Something came up unexpectedly. I'll be back soon. I returned to the place where I had originally waited for him, but I kept waiting, and he never returned. As the party ended, I finally received a message stating that he was engaged to Serena. During the hour I waited for him, they completed their engagement ceremony. The internet was flooded with news about their engagement. Not long after the dance party, photos of them dancing went viral. Everyone praised them as a perfect match, a couple made in heaven. In addition, there were official statements from Rocky's and Serena's families. All signs indicated that Rocky and Serena getting married was a foregone conclusion. I stared at their photo together until my eyes started to sting. Before I closed the news page, the butler from Serena's family found me and said he was to take me home. "This is Mr. Rocky's instruction." I shook my head and removed the ring, handing it to the butler. "Please pass this to Rocky." After saying that, I turned and left. Back home, I began to pack my things and took the earliest flight to an unfamiliar city. Rocky still didn't know that I had received a graduate school admission notice some time ago. I had planned to take the entrance exam for graduate school since my sophomore year, but after meeting Rocky, I inexplicably handed him my resume and my plans for graduate school were delayed. This time, Rocky was aware I was taking the exam. He encouraged me to give it a try and helped me find plenty of materials. In countless late nights, while he dealt with work, I was right there beside him, tackling difficult problems. Everything was vivid in my mind, but everything had already changed. After a long detour, I returned to the starting point of our acquaintance. This time, I didn't want to leave myself with regrets. The enrollment went smoothly, and the teachers and classmates I met were great. I rushed back and forth between the lab and dormitory daily, and the busy days gave me a sense that nothing had happened. At school, I met Peter, a senior from my hometown. He stayed on to work after graduating from his master's program. We often ran into each other in the lab and gradually became familiar. Once, while eating together, Peter asked me, "I remember you said you wanted to take the entrance exam for graduate school. I was disappointed when I heard you didn't go through with it." I smiled and replied, "I found a good job and thought I'd seize the opportunity to learn more." He laughed. "So now you've come back after learning everything?" I nodded. Over 6 years, I spent 3 years trying to get closer to Rocky, 3 years by his side, and the things I learned would benefit me for a long time. Then you must have met a great boss. Yeah, my boss is pretty good. Perhaps because of that topic, I thought of Rocky. It had been nearly a month since our breakup, and he hadn't contacted me, nor did I follow his news. I thought I would never see Rocky again. But that day, when Peter walked me back to the dormitory, I saw Rocky downstairs. Dressed in a fitted suit, he stood out in the crowd, attracting the attention of girls who gawked in admiration. Seeing me with Peter, Rocky approached us confidently and greeted Peter. "Hello, I'm Rocky." Peter was slightly surprised, replying, "Peter, I know you, Rocky." Rocky smiled at me but spoke to Peter. "I've heard Lee mention you a lot over the years. She said you helped her a lot in college." Peter was smart enough to catch his implication and made an excuse to leave after a few pleasantries. "Lee." Rocky took a step forward, and I took a step back. He paused and said with a pitiful tone, "I waited for you for 2 hours." I coldly reminded him, "Rocky, we've broken up." He slowly reached out to take my hand. "Are you angry?" I tensed up and stepped back twice. "Rocky, please have some self-respect." He finally suppressed his expression, looking at me with deep eyes. After a while, he said, "That day, Serena's father suddenly fell ill. He was worried about her, so." I interrupted him. "No matter what happened that day, we made our choices, didn't we? You chose her, and I let you go. So Rocky, don't come looking for me anymore, and let's not meet again." Here's the translated text, formatted as requested. When we first broke up, I felt unwilling and hated him. I occasionally dreamed of him, waking up in tears under the blanket until dawn. There's a saying that no one is indispensable. Even the hardest obstacles will eventually pass. I spent all day in the lab, with experimental data filling my eyes and mind, leaving no room to think of anything else. So, when we met again, I could control my emotions. I truly liked him once. Now, I genuinely want to let him go. After that day, I didn't see Rocky again. With the winter break approaching, Peter invited me to go home with him, and I accepted. On the way, he hesitated several times before finally summoning the courage to ask, "Haley, are you and Rocky? He's your boss, right?" I didn't hide it. "Yes, it's him. So you too." We were together for 3 years, and we've been broken up for 6 months. Peter let out a sigh of relief. "Then I can relax." "Huh," he chuckled lightly. "That means I can pursue you without worry. Peter's home is not far from mine. He offered to drop me off, but I declined." Just as I reached the ground floor of my building, I saw a familiar car parked by the roadside. The license plate number was imprinted in my memory. I ignored the car and walked towards the entrance. But someone grabbed my luggage. Rocky's exquisite features showed signs of fatigue. He must have driven over alone. It was more than 800 kilometers from Jincheng to Qingcheng. His voice was hoarse when he spoke. "Can we talk?" "We have nothing to discuss, Lee." His words were interrupted by a voice. It was my mom. I called her when I was close to the neighborhood, and she came to pick me up. I didn't expect to encounter this scene. My mom is a sucker for looks. When she found out Rocky was my former boss, she welcomed him into our home with a beaming smile. She made dumplings, insisting that Rocky try her cooking. Unable to stop her, I followed along. Dad wasn't home, and after my mom went into the kitchen, only Rocky and I were left in the living room. I poured him a glass of water. "Rocky, after this meal, I hope we have no more ties." He reached for my hand, but I instinctively pulled away. Rocky's eyes were hurt. "I annulled my marriage with Serena. I've thought this through during this time. I want to marry you." I nodded lightly. "But Rocky, I don't want to marry you anymore." His expression fell apart in an instant, his handsome, clean-cut face paling. I stood up. "Let's part amicably." With that, I entered the kitchen to help my mom. She quietly asked me if he was pursuing me. I told her we were not a match. The class divide was too great for us to be together. Mom lamented, "While I'd love to have a wealthy son-in-law, I hope my daughter finds someone suitable for her." I am grateful to my parents. They raised me well and understand me. After the dumplings, my mom asked me to see Rocky out. Once outside the entrance, I had no intention of moving forward. He didn't move either, standing still. "Haley, if I hadn't left you alone at Serena's house that day, would we not have ended up here? If we had gotten our marriage license that day, would you have been so heartless to abandon me?" I looked at him. "You were the one who left me first." I recalled something. The day Serena came back, I couldn't reach him all day, and ended up waiting for him in his office until midnight before leaving. That day was my 28th birthday. The day before, he said he would prepare a grand, unforgettable birthday party for me. But on my birthday, I tried many ways to contact him, only to later find out he had gone to pick up Serena and threw her a lavish welcome feast. He had already made his choice back then. The cold air rushed south, and the temperature dropped to freezing overnight, damp and chilly. I wrapped myself in a thick coat for warmth, and suddenly my mom said, "Lee, come look, is that your boss?" I walked to the window and looked down. The familiar car was parked outside the neighborhood. Rocky, dressed too lightly, was carrying a hot drink toward the car. Dad came over to take a look and said, "This car has been parked here for 2 days. Is this Lee's boss?" "He's my former boss. I've resigned." Dad, being shrewd, sensed something wasn't right. Under his questioning, I honestly told him about Rocky, while concealing most of the facts. Dad said, "Good girl, a family like that isn't suitable for us. Go talk to him and let him leave. He's here for you, and if anything happens, we can't handle it." I put on my down jacket and approached Rocky's car. When he got out, his handsome face lit up with excitement. But in the next second, the color drained from his face, and his lips turned pale and tight. I said, "You are affecting my normal life. Go back, Rocky, don't trouble me anymore. Is there really no chance for us?" His voice trembled in the cold wind. I pointed to the red Ferrari 10 meters away. "Do you see that? She came with you the day you arrived. I can ignore her, but you can't. If you want to marry someone who loves you, Serena is the best choice." Rocky, usually gentle, clenched his fists and finally lost his temper. "Haley, we've been together for 3 years. You can't just decide you don't want me. What do you take me for?" I pulled the hood of my coat tighter. "Before I was with you, I saw you as my goal. When I was with you, you were my lover. Now that I've stopped loving you, you're still my former boss." His thin lips curled slightly. "I don't want to be just your boss." I ignored him and waved at the flashy Ferrari behind me. Soon, Serena got out of the car and strode over. She eyed me warily, her gaze subtly scrutinizing. I didn't care, turning away as I walked, saying, "This place is not like yours. There's no heating, but if you want to suffer through it, I can't stop you." Once home, I dove into bed. The cold blanket felt just like my heart. That night, I started running a fever, and it lasted 3 full days before subsiding. The sun came out, I pulled back the curtains. The cold faded, and I felt alive again. Mom said that on the first day I was sick, the 2 cars downstairs left and never returned. After staying home for 2 days, Peter invited me out. When he learned I was sick at home, he even brought gifts to see me. My parents surrounded him, questioning him like a census, and were quite pleased with him. After Peter left, my parents asked for my opinion. I said, I don't like him or dislike him, we can try dating. Peter was very happy when he found out. He assured me, I may be clumsy with words and not know how to say nice things, but I promise I will never let you suffer. The day before heading back to school, my mom handed me a velvet box. Inside was a platinum diamond ring. She said, I found this in the sofa seams. Your dad told me not to give it to you, but I think this is something you should decide for yourself. I found a delivery station and sent the ring back to Rocky, once again deleting and blocking all his contact information. In the new semester, I still spent every day in the lab, occasionally having meals with Peter. Although we were in a relationship, he knew when to give me space, so I never felt uncomfortable. Pleasant days didn't last long before Rocky broke the peace again. The school introduced a new scholarship to reward outstanding full-time graduate students. I received the second prize. On the day of the award ceremony, I saw Rocky at school. The school leaders greeted him respectfully, and amid the discussions, I learned that this scholarship was sponsored by Rocky. From across the crowd, I felt Rocky looking at me, a smile on his lips as gentle as ever. I averted my gaze and went up to accept the award, without any interaction. However, after the award ceremony, my counselor asked me to walk around campus with Rocky. Just as I was about to refuse, Peter appeared out of nowhere and said to the counselor, I'll accompany Rocky with Lee, and so we set off. As we walked, I lagged behind the 2 of them. Peter diligently introduced Rocky, but Rocky seemed uninterested and suggested going out to eat. When we arrived at the restaurant, Peter was called away by a phone call. He hesitated, looking at me. In an instant, I understood his meaning. I held onto his arm and said to Rocky, Sorry, boss Rocky, I have to leave with my boyfriend. Otherwise, he won't be at ease. Rocky expressed understanding. Perfect. It's on our way. I'll give you a lift for a while. Peter was reluctant, but it was nearly impossible to get a cab, so he had to compromise. As we got into the car, I consciously sat in the front seat, while Peter and Rocky took the back. Suddenly, Rocky pulled out a doll from under the seat and handed it to me. You used to like hugging it and sleeping in the car. Let's take it back together. I silently took it, planning to throw it in a trash bin after getting out. Rocky's voice continued, Old Zhang, what happened to the things I asked you to clean up last time? The driver handed me an exquisite bag from the storage box. Secretary Haley, these are the things you left in the car. Check if you missed anything. To be honest, I could see through Rocky's little scheme at a glance. Yet such little schemes can plant seeds in some people's hearts, which then take root and sprout. For example, Peter. I could hear the cracking sound as he clenched his knuckles. Even without looking back, the car fell into a deathly silence. This silence lasted until we got out of the car. Peter suddenly said, leaving him to be with me must make you feel wronged, right? One of your lipsticks is almost worth half my monthly salary. I frowned. The lipstick was bought by me. It has nothing to do with anyone else. Rocky never shortchanged his subordinates. During my 3 years with him, my salary rose steadily, peaking at 6 figures. I could buy a few $1,000 lipstick myself. Peter sneered, buying it with his money still counts as from him. I looked at him, a wave of fatigue rising from my heart, spreading to my limbs. Peter, if you mind, let's just forget about this. His expression darkened. Do you regret being with me? Now that he beckons you, you can't wait to return to him? I should have known long ago that you could never forget him. Being with me was just to make him angry. Smack. I slapped Peter with all my strength. I couldn't control my trembling body, staring at him in anger. Peter, you may not like me, but you cannot slander me. Let's break up. After breaking up with Peter, I devoted myself entirely to my studies. During that time, he came to find me, but I ignored him. He approached my roommate, asking her to pass on gifts, trying to persuade me to get back together with him. Peter is really a responsible person. If you miss him, you may not get another chance. I told my roommate that although I was a bit older, I wouldn't settle for binding myself to someone for the rest of my life just because of my age. She stopped trying to persuade me. On the day my study abroad application was accepted, Peter came to find me. Congratulations. He handed me a box. This is a gift for your study abroad. I didn't accept it. Peter's fingers, gripping the gift box, turned white. Did you apply abroad because of me? I shook my head. This is part of my career planning in college. Although it was a few years late, as long as I worked hard, it was never too late to start. Then can I see you off? No need. Peter still came to the airport to see me off. His eyes were red, wanting to say something but ended up saying nothing. Once I got on the plane, I discovered that Peter had stuffed the gift he gave me into my bag a few days earlier. It was a necklace. I put it away and threw it in the trash. After landing, the academic atmosphere at the new school was strong, and my classmates were all nice. In this unfamiliar environment, I completely relaxed. I picked up my photography hobby, wandering around taking pictures and uploading them to my personal video account. Life was going smoothly. I never imagined that I would hear news about Rocky in a foreign land. A classmate in the study abroad group asked, "Does anyone know Rocky? He's one of the top young entrepreneurs in the country. He's coming to expand the overseas market. Our senior was hired with a high salary by him. If anyone wants to go to his company, I can recommend you." He posted a photo of Rocky in the group, and immediately some girls signed up. A friend privately messaged me, "Haley, are you signing up? I just asked friends back home, and they all said Rocky is particularly nice to his secretaries and will help them avoid drinking. With such a gentle and handsome boss, you can definitely learn a lot by following him. I really envy his secretary." Rocky's abilities were unquestionable, and he treated his subordinates well, but I didn't want to be involved with him again. "I have a few experiments to do, so I won't go." She expressed regret. "I think with your ability, you would definitely get hired at his company, and maybe even become his secretary." I still saw Rocky. The girl living next door moved out, and the next day, new tenants moved in. That day, as soon as I opened the door, I saw Rocky in sportswear, opening the door next door, clearly just back from a run. I was in a hurry and ran off without greeting him. In the evening, I ran into Rocky again after class. Rather than coincidence, it felt like he was intentionally waiting for me. He was carrying a bag of groceries, looking at me pitifully. "I can't get used to the food here, and I don't know how to cook. I haven't eaten for 2 days." I took a deep breath. "Rocky, just go back. There really isn't a chance for us," he replied gently. "I know, we're just neighbors now. Once the company here stabilizes, I'll go back home. This place is close to school, not expensive, but definitely not Rocky's first choice. He should be living in a luxurious apartment in the city center with 3 to 5 friends, living upstairs or downstairs, and a Chinese chef at home, rather than crammed into this messy little apartment." I didn't call out his lies, took the bag from his hands, and went into my room, shutting the door behind me. An hour later, I knocked on his door with the cooked Chinese food. He cautiously looked at me, holding the dishes. "Would you like to join me for a bit?" "No, I've eaten." Rocky was very busy, and I hadn't seen him for several days. Once I found a place, I moved in immediately. The noise from my move startled Rocky. He came out of his room, showing an uncommon look of shock. I handed him the recipe. "If you want to eat Chinese food, you can follow the recipe. If all else fails, just go back home." Rocky lowered his eyes. I couldn't read his emotions. As I drove away, I saw him standing by the roadside for a long time, until the car turned a corner, and I could no longer see him. I moved into a shared apartment with 2 international students. Rocky didn't follow me. After all, this place had worse conditions than the last apartment. He, a pampered young master, no matter how much he liked someone, couldn't possibly compromise to live in such a poorly hidden place for a relationship with no future. I attended school methodically, conducted experiments, and occasionally went out with classmates to relax. During my outings, I met a photography enthusiast. Coincidentally, he had attended the same university as me, a sunny, strong young man, but he told me he was 2 years older than me. I was surprised. He really looked like a big guy. As I got to know Tony better, he often invited me to take photos with him. I wasn't good at taking pictures, so he taught me composition. I learned slowly, and he patiently explained techniques to me. After spending time together, we would travel during the holidays. I mentioned my dream of traveling the world. He laughed. "What a coincidence. My dream is to capture the world's beauty through my lens." Days passed, spring gave way to winter, and 3 years flew by. Tony and I got together. He was the one to propose. "I think we get along quite well. Would you like to try dating?" Being with him was very comfortable, and I didn't resist further developing our relationship. Trying was just trying. Surprisingly, we were in sync in many aspects. After returning home, we met each other's parents, and both sides were pleased. So we put our marriage plans on the agenda. On our wedding night, Tony was heavily intoxicated. He sat on the sofa, obediently waiting for me to bring him the hangover soup. Hales. Everyone called me Ali, or Haley, but he said he couldn't be like everyone else, so he came up with a Hales. I turned to look at him. His ears were very red, making one unable to resist wanting to tease him. Hales, he called again, his voice needy and lingering. I brought the hangover soup to him, leaning in to see him. Only 2 cups. How are you this drunk? He raised 2 fingers. That's 2 bottles. Dad and I drank together. We were happy. I fell silent. He tugged at the corner of my clothes, softly coaxing. Don't be angry. I won't drink anymore. Please don't be mad, okay? I pretended to be fierce with him. Drink the hangover soup, then go wash up and sleep. Oh. He drank the hangover soup and obediently followed me into the bathroom. As he hugged me in the bathtub, I heard his clear voice. It's been 10 years, Hales. I finally married you. I didn't have time to think deeply, as my senses took over my thoughts, and I fell into a deep sleep. I had a dream. I dreamed of the day I first met Rocky, lost and unable to find my classroom. In a moment of urgency, I randomly grabbed someone. Classmate, do you know where Rocky is giving his speech? The tall and handsome boy looked up, his face overlapping with Tony's face. I know, he said, but you have to be my model and help me take a photo for me to take you there. I agreed. At graduation, I received a photo under the cherry blossom tree. My smile was radiant. On the back of the photo was a contact number and 2 powerful words, Tony. Epilogue. Rocky is now 35 years old. At first, his family urged him to marry Serena, but eventually they relaxed their criteria to just wanting him to get married, as long as it was a woman. However, he no longer had any thoughts of marriage. As his company grew larger, his personality became increasingly paranoid and reclusive. In front of others, he was the decisive and wise president, but behind closed doors, he was addicted to social media. Why? Because of Haley. Haley opened a social media account where she updated her photography works daily. Occasionally, she would appear on camera, and on lucky days, he could hear her voice in videos. Then one day, she stopped updating. During those days, everyone in the company was on edge, tensed up, afraid that a careless mistake would ignite Rocky, the human bomb. He was like a voyeur, sickly flipping through Haley's account, trying to find clues about her. Finally, he discovered a verified account with 1 million followers that frequently interacted with Haley. It was Tony's account. In Tony's photography works, whenever there was a video featuring a real person, the female lead was always Haley. Haley looked so lively in his lens, a side of her Rocky had never seen. The comments were filled with praise for Tony for making Haley look so beautiful. Sexy, stunning, pure, gentle. Rocky thought it was because Haley was so beautiful that Tony could achieve such results. He seemed to find a new spiritual anchor, visiting Tony's account daily. It was just another ordinary day. Rocky opened Tony's account as usual, only to receive a thunderclap of news. Tony and Haley were getting married. Rocky actually knew Haley was in a relationship, but he held on to a glimmer of hope, thinking Haley, having gone through him and Peter, couldn't possibly still believe in love. As it turned out, he was wrong. When Serena learned that Rocky would attend Haley's wedding, she took her husband along to mock him. Everyone else has moved on, but you still can't let go. Rocky, you were the one who was indecisive, which led to her leaving. Who are you trying to appear devoted to now? It's just about unwillingness, right? So what? She doesn't want you. Haley doesn't want you. Over the past 3 years, Serena had endured countless humiliations from him. Finally realizing that Rocky would never marry her, she turned and accepted her family's arranged marriage, quickly tying the knot. Rocky still attended Haley's wedding. He showed up uninvited, and Tony personally welcomed him. At the wedding, he saw Peter. The two were seated at a table for alumni, sitting tightly next to each other. When Peter saw Rocky, neither of them spoke. As the bride was about to appear, they both tacitly left the wedding venue. Peter asked Rocky, "Do you regret it?" Rocky remained silent. Peter sneered, "You don't seem like someone who would regret. In the past, I felt inferior to you, worried you'd win her back. Now seeing you in this situation, I feel relieved." Before leaving, Peter said to him, "Rocky, she was meant to be yours, but you pushed her away yourself. Don't disturb her again. She's very happy now." That day, Rocky fled in despair. He still opened Tony's video account in the dead of night, but Haley appeared on camera less and less, eventually disappearing for a long time. Rocky knew he should let go, but he didn't know how, until that day when a baby appeared in one of Tony's videos. That was Haley and Tony's child. Tony made a long video. The video began with a phrase, "Our 10 years. The first photo was of Haley standing under the cherry blossom tree, her smile youthful and bright. Then came another phrase, "After 10 years, finally found you." Next came the photos. Alaska, Rome, Santorini, Iceland, the Duku Highway, the prairie. They embraced in the glow of sunset, made wishes under the aurora, and ran on horseback across the prairie. By the end, Rocky felt his eyes sting. All these things he could have easily done with her. Yet he hadn't done a single one. The comments section was filled with voices of blessings. He also wanted to say a few words of congratulations, but after typing and deleting, not a single word was written. From that day on, Rocky deactivated his social media account and never opened social platforms again.